All right, so this week's talk is going to be on my iPhone because my brother took my camera to shoot grad photos. And that brings me to what I want to talk about for this video: college and schooling in general. Maybe just college for now. But essentially, this past week, for some reason, college has been on my mind. So I graduated four years ago at this point. Yeah, like December 2022, I graduated college, and it was brought back to the forefront of my consciousness when I went to the Bruno Mars concert just Sunday. It was held at my college stadium, Bobby Dodd Stadium at Georgia Tech. So the whole process of going into that concert, like driving in on the same roads that I used to drive in, walking from the parking spot to that stadium, it all brought these memories of college and sort of like that the essence and the feeling of college back to my mind. Short aside, Bruno Mars is the GOAT. I don't think I've ever experienced a concert that was that sensational and that phenomenal in my entire life. Yeah, I was blown away. It was like it wasn't just him. It was also uh, Andre from Victorious was like the opening act, and then also like DJ Pee Wee or Anderson .Paak, and like Silk Sonic was. So Silk Sonic actually, funnily enough, also tied to college. Like like a Halloween costume we had put together was Silk Sonic, and like that was around the time that Silk Sonic just came out, and it was like a mind-blowing new artist like collaboration thing. But anyway, we got to listen to them in real life at that concert, and it was also mind-blowing. Yeah, Bruno Mars is the GOAT. I think he is rightfully the Prince of Pop, heir to the throne of Michael Jackson. Like I think he's that caliber of performer, that caliber of artist. His voice is incredible. His music, like he has no skips. His discography, like end to end, is unbeatable, untouched. I don't think that there's an artist like in the 21st century who's got as many incredible hits and as much fantastic music as Bruno Mars. Like I think it's like he's goated. He's goated, regardless. So essentially, this 10-minute yap session, I want to talk about college, especially my experience at college and how it kind of shapes me to be who I am today, as well as like how it was back then. All right. So I graduated high school in 2019 and I went to college. So my first semester was fall of 2019. Was it fall of 2019? Oh, now I have to count backwards. Okay. So I graduated I graduated in 3.5 years. I graduated in December of 2022. If I was I None of that matters. What matters is I only had one real semester of college, right? That first semester of college where I was a freshman, I was in my dorm room, like the first time I had an actual college experience was in freshman year. Now, like a little bit of context, out of high school, I was hating school. I was already hating school by the time school was out. So Georgia Tech, I was like, maybe I could find a way to love schooling. Maybe I could find a way to enjoy what I was doing with industrial engineering and existing in college. And the first semester, I will say, was fantastic. I was like really on my grind set mindset. You know, I was taking cold showers every day. I was working out. I was eating like insane amounts of protein and getting my calories in and like counting intake, you know, all that stuff. I was waking up super early. I was locked in on classes. Me and my friends had like the side project, startup, laptop stand thing that we were doing. And it was like there was motion. I think it was March 2020, when COVID hit. And from that moment to essentially my last 1.5 years of college, or like the next 2 years of college after that semester, were just like lockdown, quarantine, BSing classes. I was binge watching anime. Like that was when I started anime and like watched the majority of insane anime. Like I sat down and finished all of One Piece during the pandemic. Dang, great memories. Regardless, so that was one side of it. It was like that experience of being stuck, that was like a huge part of it, and like filling it with watching content and really not doing much. I was like addicted to chess. I used to play chess as a kid, and then I picked it back up as like a younger, or like as a college student, and it was like I would just be on chess.com playing and watching like a bunch of chess videos, and it was so, I don't know, that was not a good time either. But essentially, what I remember most of college, besides that first semester that was fun for the most part, was like this isolation and this lack of the college experience. That whole pandemic felt like a blur. Like right before or actually at the very start of the pandemic was when I started the Urban Indian, and then like a year or so in, I think I had like let go of it a little bit, and then I picked it back up towards the end of the pandemic. But pandemic happened, shaped the entirety of my experience for college, reworked my brain chemistry. You know how it is. It's like a pandemic in college. There's not much more that you can speak on about that. It was just isolating and a strange experience. Anyway, my third year of college was in that was another year that felt like it was like a pseudo college year. It was still, people were like getting COVID tests. We were making sure to like quarantine when needed. People were still getting sick left and right, and that. This was like 2022, right? So this was when that next variant of COVID hit, and people were like really suffering. Like I think the death toll went to somewhere. I have a note about this. It went like, I think it was like 1 million deaths in the United States, which is like all of that is happening around you, and you're doing industrial engineering at a school, and like the future outlook is like a question mark. It's not like there's no definite, this is gonna happen for your future, right? Um, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that's too much on the pandemic side of things. Essentially, the first 3 years of my college experience were just filled with some good and then mostly just isolation and pandemic stuff. Neither here nor there. Now, we're in that last semester of college. I graduated a semester early, and that last semester of college was like the finals for like the industrial engineering degree. And I didn't really have a good experience with it. It was like a final project. That was the only thing I really had to do, but I was like building the Urban Indian on the side, so it was like too much soul crushing work. And I wasn't living on campus, so I was like driving an hour from my house to campus like almost every day. So that was its own battle. But regardless, that last semester, I didn't know I was graduating until I had already walked. Like that last class that they gave us, we didn't know our grades, whether we passed or not, until after we walked. So I didn't even know at the time that I was walking that I was graduated. Honestly, in hindsight, I'm like, why were you tweaking so much that you weren't going to graduate? The grade, like basically, if I didn't pass that class, we're not graduating, right? So I was worried, and I was like, if I don't pass this class, I'm just gonna drop out. My parents were also super worried because I was tweaking for some reason. I don't know. I was really just tweaking. Yeah, I don't know, but we finished that walk, we graduated, whatnot. But basically, I can't help but feel like that college experience had to happen for me, like that sort of college experience that made me feel like I didn't like college. That had to happen for me. The reason why I think that had to happen for me, because it just reiterated what I hated about high school so much. It felt like a prison. I felt trapped. And in that sort of caged sort of existence, that's where I found this like desire to start being an entrepreneur and like work on side projects and figure out like the orientation of my life as an individual like owner of my own life and not wanting to have a boss, you know, the typical like entrepreneur stuff. um but I really do think it started like becoming a real fire in me when I realized that schooling and the school system and that sort of methodical nature of like take this information and download it not in the way of learning but memorize it, um and then like apply it on a piece of paper and then like forget it and move on. Like that's the way that schooling works realistically. And that I just didn't like in high school. And then college was like a mind-numbing version of that because COVID was just like that. Like it's not even school at that point, you know, you're just like going through the motions. Neither here nor there, I know. But essentially, I getting out of college was so clear on the fact that I didn't want to be in like the traditional school to like career pipeline. I didn't want to do anything traditional after that experience. So like looking back on it now, would I say I had a college experience? Maybe one semester max. But the rest of that experience that I had, even though it wasn't like college core, it was it was life changing. It set me on the path that I'm on today, where I'm building my own business and I am really in charge of my own life. So I don't know. Maybe that drive to Bruno Mars was like a little bit bittersweet because it reminded me of that first semester where it was like, wow, it feels so nice to be in college and to like try to love schooling and try to love that system. And then it also at the same time reminded me about how much what I'm doing right now is attributed to how much college made me like not want to like exist, you know? So I guess in a way, like the that college experience shaped me to be who I am today. And it made me realize that like I guess that Bruno Mars concert like journey made me recognize that I'm glad that things are the way they are. Like I'm okay not having a college experience in that way that is like, you know, typical and seen in the movies because I I suppose my desired experiences are elsewhere. Maybe college and school just that's not where my life experiences are, were, or will be. I guess yeah, it literally won't be because I'm not a student anymore. Isn't that crazy? Like I'm not a student. Actually, no. Let me change that. So this is another aside, maybe no more college talk, but the concept of learning and being a forever student, schooling, the school system doesn't teach you how to learn. It also doesn't teach you the things it's trying to teach you. I don't think school is good for genuine learning or genuine understanding. And I'll explain what I mean. Learning isn't this idea of memorization, right? Sometimes it's like sometimes you're either learning how to do the problem or solve the question or answer the question for a test. Like for example, the SAT, you're not actually learning anything while studying for the SAT besides how to do well on the SAT. That's why I think that test is completely irrelevant and doesn't measure anything. It genuinely measures nothing. Fuck the SAT. But anyway, the concept of learning is very dear to me. I love learning, and I love the way that the brain takes in information and helps you understand it. Like I know that there's I think Richard there's like a Richard Feynman like video where he walks from like counting all the way to calculus, and I think one of the coolest parts of learning is like even if I like got through BC calculus with a C, I know fundamentally how we go from counting to calculus. That's why I loved math and I loved the class of calculus so much, is because I think I understood it at a very profound level. But there are people who I know who like genuinely hate the subject and hate like the learning system because I don't think that it's wired for getting everyone to understand what's being told to them. I think everyone is being forced to memorize, and like memory is hard. I don't have a good memory, and I think understanding is the key principle or the core of learning. And I don't know, maybe that's another gripe I have with the schooling system. It's like they're forcing you to memorize when they should be teaching you how to learn and teaching you how to understand. Like that's one of the things, right? So social studies is a subject that I used to really hate because it was so boring and it was like whatnot. Like I was just like so done with it. But then I had a high school teacher, 10th grade. I was learning AP World History, and that teacher, she taught world history as if it was a story. She was explaining all of these different things as if I was like I was sat there and I'm like, I can't believe this stuff happened. This sounds like a TV episode, right? And that helped me understand it. And I didn't feel the need to memorize it. Sometimes when you're like learning social studies, it's like it just feels like a bunch of random facts. But then you sit there and you're like thinking through the way that humans interact with each other and why one thing leads to another. And then you start to realize like understanding social studies or world history feels different than just memorizing. And I think that's part of the reason why so many kids also hate social studies, is because it's like, why do I gotta remember Archduke Franz Ferdinand and World War One and like what that got to do with me? But it's just so interesting to go back now and think about how like if you're taught it in the right way and you're told these things as the stories they are and the interconnectednesses of that, I think that's like so much more meaningful. And I don't think high school is optimized for that. I don't think college is optimized for that. Yeah, I used to hate statistics. Then I had a teacher in in high school. I think it was my senior year of high school, who sat sat like the most incredible math learning experience ever, because I used to hate statistics. I hated probability. I was like, fuck probability. You know, it's not like this. Like it was just such an intangible thing to me. And then like I sat through her class and I was blown away by the end of it, by how important statistics is as a concept and how much it alters the world. And I was blown away because I understood statistics at an intimate level. That's part of the reason why I went into college with such excitement for what I was about to learn, because I was doing industrial engineering and that's very statistics coded. So like, you know, I was excited for it. Funnily enough, that first semester was a little bit easier than I expected because I learned so much of the first two classes I took for industrial engineering in that high school senior year class of statistics, AP statistics. It's fucking great class, fucking great class. Um, and great teacher. My calc teacher was also great. Like I was so shit at physics. I was horrible at physics. I still am horrible at physics. I don't physics I get in theory, but I can't do physics. But I really enjoyed the teachers that were teaching me physics. I only had one physics teacher back in high school, and she's the goat. Um, but yeah, like even then, it's like I only really enjoyed school because like sometimes the teachers were great or the subjects were really cool. But sitting down and having to like force feed your brain all this information and then regurgitating it onto like a test or something is it's so out of character for what humans do. Sorry, I'm just testing focus and stuff. Oh wow. So I'm recording on this iPhone, right? And wow, this is actually phenomenal. I'm recording in log now, so like fingers crossed that this looks good, but I don't know. Anyway, schooling is important. Schooling is great for me when the teacher and the subject that I'm learning are phenomenal. But besides that, it's like, it's just a chore. It's a bore to get through. And one of my childhood friends framed high school as prison, or like they said that high school was kind of like a prison. And since then, that framework stuck in my mind because it was like it does feel like a prison. College felt like a prison for the most part. It was like kind of a literal prison because we were like all in shutdown or lockdown or whatever. But anyway, full picture. My schooling experience and the negative way it made me feel pushed me onto this path of entrepreneurship, of being my own boss and going that distance, right? So maybe if there's like a lesson to take from all this, if you're in school right now, if you're in college right now and you hate it, there's a few things I would suggest to you. One, try to deeply understand what you're learning. If you're even remotely curious about it, trying to get an understanding from it, whether through it's like active work in that. So if it's like a robotics class, maybe you're fucking around with robots like elsewhere, or perhaps you're watching YouTube videos and learning a bit deeper on your own. First thing you should do is try to learn the subject deeper. It might help you get through the class better. If you understand something at a more fundamental level, things become a little bit easier, especially in school. Second thing, try entrepreneurship. It's a lot of fun. It's probably so hard to get into. I'm saying try hard, try entrepreneurship as if it's this thing that you can just like do super quickly. In theory, it is, but it's like you still gotta. There's like some sort of framework and some sort of like starting line. Like a lot of people don't even know where the starting line is for entrepreneurship. Maybe I'll make a video on that sometime. The starting line of entrepreneurship. That's a bar. I'll title a YouTube video that sometime. Neither here nor there still. Essentially, if you're struggling in school, if you hate college, if you hate high school like I did, don't worry, you're not alone. The that is not the only answer for you. It's a good answer. College is like, it can be really helpful. Schooling is really helpful. I'm not saying not to do school. I'm not saying not to do college. I used to be one of those guys that's like, drop out of college. You know, you get out of college, be your own boss, like entrepreneurialize. No, stay in college, get the degree if you can. There is no better hedge against the chaos of the world than a degree right now. Like even though the job market is kind of cooked currently, I'm very confident that a degree will still have some sort of weight when you're trying to find a sense of stability for yourself and the future of your finance. You know, so don't drop out of college. I am not recommending that. Stay in college. But while you're in college, tinker with the idea of being your own boss, tinker with entrepreneurship. I can't believe, funnily enough, let's take this back to my brother who's currently using my camera to shoot grad photos. I used to tell him all the time, I was like, yo, just drop out of college, bro. Like, work, work at the business, work at the Urban Indian, you know, lock in, do that shit forever. You don't got to worry about school. And I think over the past 2 years, what I realized is no one should drop out of college. Like, sure, there are the few people who maybe drop out of college and do like crazy things, and maybe there's a better there. Sometimes you'll feel like there is a better time input X like ROI, something there where the balancing effect outweighs you getting a degree. There's always that potential. But I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, if you tough out the degree and then work on things that you want to, you'll feel a lot safer, a lot more stable, and you can always start your own thing, right? You can always start the next thing. You can always start an entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurial endeavor. You can always start that. Getting your college degree, it's like that's hard to do when you're like a big adult. So, and I mean, I actually really am. I applaud the people who can do that because it's a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging when you have other things on your plate. So if you're like early 20s, get that degree and then try to get a new job, try to get a good job if you can. If you can, like entrepreneurialize for a little bit, do that too. I know that straight out of college, I guess, yeah, we could talk a little bit about that. Like straight out of college was a really interesting place for me because I was confident in the Urban Indian, right? And I was like, yo, mom, dad, please, let me work on this for a bit. And they were like, sure, you can, but like if you don't got motion with the Urban Indian, like get an internship or get a job somewhere, bro. You gotta lock in. I was like, yeah, you guys are right. Here, I'll give myself this deadline, and I'll try to apply to jobs and I'll try to do work on the side. I'll see what happens. But anyway, after college, I took a solo trip around Europe, which I will save that story for another day as well, and I'll share I'll share it in broad. It changed my life, and it was the best thing I possibly could have done after college. So again, after you escape the prison that is high school, college, spend some time. If you have a job immediately, try to find like a week or two to go travel. Like traveling, I think is phenomenal. It's sensational. Go do that, and then um, after college, after the traveling, I sat down. I was like, okay, I don't know where the urban Indian is going right now. I got to apply to jobs, and I got to see if I can make some profit for the urban Indian or something. And then I was applying to jobs, and I got an internship or like a temporary like role at this startup called Build Space. A story for another day. That also changed my life. Very impactful age that was the post college era. Um, and that was cool. The reason it was cool is because it's a startup, right? It's a startup that that's very much in that energy of like do what you want, do not go to like drop out of college, go start a multi-million-dollar company, that type of stuff, right? So startup was like really in my lane, and I went there and I was up for this like merch design role, and this is this is one of the interesting things that I now that I'm saying it ties back into that like college feel, right? Because I'll explain like this and I'll wrap back around. So when I was up for that job at the at BuildSpace and I got a call to discuss things, I had mentioned that I was like I graduated Georgia Tech and I was building my business there, and that's like what the experience unit I was using to get this job. And the person I was talking to was like, "Oh, this is sick," and I I will essentially they were pretty how do you say, they're pretty impressed that I was like a Georgia Tech student, which I think is like one of the things that I knew going into the application cycle for Georgia Tech, going into that class, going into that school. It was really interesting to see that they were actually impressed that I had gotten a Georgia Tech degree. That was the first time I had met face to face with like the value of what that degree meant. And then yeah, of course, after that, I got that like role, but then I decided to like continue with the Urban Indian, and like the rest is history because now I'm working on the Urban Indian. That's like what I did post college. But essentially, like maybe I'm running through that part of the story too quickly, but I wanted to like tie this back into what I was talking about at the start. Is like this past week post Bruno Mars concert has been like 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 I came face to face with the college experience a little bit, because I had also had a dinner where someone I was at the table. They had also been a little shocked that I had gotten a Georgia Tech degree, which was it was another sort of like indicator that even if the college experience was a little bit like, as I mentioned, kind of a mixed bag and kind of a hellhole. It's interesting to see that even 3 4 years after I've graduated, people are still like, "Yo, Georgia Tech, that's cool. That's a pretty good thing." And I think I'm still like at odds with that, right? It's like I don't know if I want to be defined by the fact that I went to Georgia Tech, because that college wasn't like the best for me, and it's like I don't know like how to frame it in my life. I know that it's like super important because I went to a good school, and then like I learned well, and like all that stuff, and it set me on the path like I was discussing just earlier. But nowadays it's like if I say Georgia Tech, there's a weight to it, but I think I'm still like coming to grips with the weight of that, because to me, Georgia I don't know if I identify too strongly with being a Georgia Tech student. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know. Maybe I just wanted to talk a little bit about like how the college experience and how Georgia Tech and like all that stuff, how it impacted my entrepreneurial self and how it impacts my perception of myself. Maybe I haven't fully unraveled that or sat down and thought through it. But I don't know what the word is. Is it like somber or sonder? No, because I think sonder is like the recognition that every single person has their own individual lives. That's a different word. But there was like some sort of bittersweetness that I had felt with going to the Bruno Mars concert because it was held at Georgia Tech. But yeah, so I I don't know how long I've been speaking, but this was easily past 10 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. But basically, that is the crux of it. Yeah, it's funny. This this the video started with me not being able to record with my camera because my brother is shooting grad photos for his friends. And yeah, post college, thoughts, post college existence. Curious what I'm gonna name the title of this video. Maybe I'll do something like clickbaity where it's like Georgia Tech, how to succeed in Georgia Tech, or like what to do after Georgia Tech, like something like that. It'll like clickbait all of the Georgia Tech students. That'd be funny. But yeah, have an incredible week, and I will see you next time.